Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. This is episode 10 of our drawer making series. And if you saw what happened yesterday, actually it happened Saturday, we got the fix. And I have to give a special shout out to Justin Cottingham. Great idea. I'm going to execute it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work. Let's save a little bit of suspense to later. So here's our drawer for the day, set of drawers for the day. Now I made this, I can't remember exactly when or why. In fact, I don't even think there was a reason. The case is made out of solid walnut. Thing weighs a ton. And I'm pretty sure it's a mitered joint. And what I do is I made this little jig to put splines, keys actually, in there. It makes for a very strong joint. The back, I must not have had any decent plywood. Oh my goodness, the dust. The back is a piece of, it looks like a piece of birch plywood that's been stained. I'll talk about the base in a minute. Built it for something to do, and then I was just kind of playing around with an idea on how to dress it up a little bit. So the center dividers have a little bead that's cut with a beading tool, top and bottom, set back in. You'll notice that the drawer fronts are veneered from a piece of solid, no, actually no, this was veneer. And this is a graft line between English walnut and Claro walnut. So of course everyone's the same. And then I played around. I turned the knobs out of box elder burl. Bad idea. You just cannot use a light colored knob because no matter what you put on for a finish, it's going to get dirty from your hands, and there's no decent way to clean it up. So I wouldn't do that again. I staggered them. Why? I just wanted to try it. As far as that goes, the drawer construction is aspen, walnut. Made the end lap is just way too small. This was a bad example. I'm not sure why I did that. I should have had more material on there. Aspen on the back, pine, as I mentioned, on the bottom. And somebody asked me, I typically don't put a finish on the inside. Others do, but I don't. I don't like the smell. The frames inside were made out of walnut front and back and poplar on the sides, mortise and tenon together, and then sitting in a dado, and I can't really remember how we joined them, so can't comment on that for you. Actually, I'll just take a quick peek up underneath and see if I can see. No, so I don't know how I did it. It might have been doweled, it might have been mortise and tenon, just don't remember. Anyway, so that's nothing different about the drawers. Nice fit, and they still fit well. They were made. We use it at home for storing CDs that hardly ever get used anymore. Now the base, I had it just stopped right there, and I didn't know what to do with the bottom. And I do remember messing around with the base numerous times, but I end up dovetailing a base, and I cut a bead all the way around. So it's a mitered. The front corner of the dovetail is mitered so that you can do a bead like that. And then I did this little thing just for some reason, just trying to, just playing. Don't really have that luxury like I wish I did in terms of free time, but that was what I really missed about being in university studying this, that you had the ability, or you had the time to just create. Didn't have to worry about paying, well, you had to worry about paying bills, but your time was spent designing stuff. And that freedom was much enjoyed. Anyway, this needs to be refinished. Nice thing about solid wood is I can go in there and I can plane that all off, put a new coat of finish on it. It'll be very difficult to do the front, so I probably won't end up doing anything with it. I'll just let it be like that. Now tomorrow, if it stops raining, we're going to bring down that nice cherry chest of drawers that I talked to you about, and we'll show that off a little bit. Some of you mentioned that you enjoy seeing stuff like that, so I'm happy to do it. Okay, let me just clean this up a little bit. We'll change gears, and we'll get into going to work on salvaging this error from Saturday night. Just in case you wanted to see something like this, so I was having to plane a bunch of mahogany today, and that is the end grain of the mahogany. That's what happens when you have a nice sharp hand plane. That's what we make our Kerf X-10 handles out of. But rather than sand the end of each one individually, it's easier to plane them as a big batch. Anyway, another topic, another day. So my idea was finish the cut, go down about 1/8 of an inch, fill it, and then hope that it blends. But Justin's idea is even better. So what we're going to do is I'm going to finish the joint, and then I'm going to cut 1/8 of an inch off the top of the pin. And I'm going to find another piece that the grain matches up. See, the problem is this. You see the grain on there, the way it swings around like this. So we interrupt that with another line, and it's going to stand out, be more than obvious. So now somebody else, was it Ahmed that had the idea of what we could have done is we could have cut the front off, and that preserved the look. Took another piece of cherry, cut the dovetails, through dovetails, and then glued that back on. And that would have been a good one too, and I would have even considered doing that, except I don't want to have to repeat. I don't have to do that at the corner again, because I've already. No, I didn't cut the waist out. So I could do that if I had to, but I'm going to try this because I like this idea. Then we'll find a piece of wood that has similar grain, but because you're only going to have a pin here and a pin here, it'll be pretty easy to make it so that you cannot tell. So we'll cut the top 1/8 of an inch off. In other words, that pin will end up being short by 1/8 of an inch. We'll cut a piece from the same piece of wood, glue it on. Now it's end grain to end grain, so it's not going to be a very good glue surface. But once the joint goes together, there'll be some long grain between the sides of the tails and the sides of the pins. It'll hold. Nobody will ever know. It'll be just as strong. So I think it's a great idea. Now, before I go back at this, I just want to go in and verify that this hasn't changed. So let's see if we can't do this without any more issues. I'll repeat this one carefully. So we already did. No, we did. Shoot. I'm not nervous. I'm confused. So if we offset to my right, we go to the left. Those ones we've already done. So now we're going to balance this down here, slide it over. Hold that firm. So now we've offset to my left, so we're going to go to the right side of each tail. So that's here, here, and out here. I'll start out here. Got to hold that firmly. A lot of comments on this episode. I'm just going to go over and get my headgear. I just moved that. It's got me into trouble last time. And I don't make mistakes to entertain you. Trust me. My ego's not that strong. I think that's close. I'll go to the right side of this one, which hasn't been done yet. Am I bumping the light or your camera?
Light.
And the right side of this one. Let's just check this. Okay, so that's right, that's right. Which one of these am I actually working? Obviously it's going to be that one, right? Okay, that one I'm satisfied with. That one I'm satisfied with. I just want to make sure. Based on the width of that. You know what, Jake? I think that's in the I think that's in the right spot. I mean I think that's in the waist.
No, it isn't.
Well, I know, but it is. It is. I really think it is. I'm going to sound crazy if it's not, but look, if we measure the base, this, so I'm measuring the space, not the kerf, the space between the tails. And if I come over here, you think?
No, because it would mean that you screwed up in marking your first pin.
Okay, well, I got to do this again. I apologize for this sounding so haphazard, but I got to make sure this is the base. So if I put that right there, put that on, move it over. Now, I'm going to take a sharp, can you put your hand right here, here, move forward, there. I'll take a sharp pencil. Okay, so what I'm going to do is mark, shoot, that doesn't mark. Oh, excuse me. Okay, I'm going to go back up. I've got this flush, and I'm going to mark in here where the outside edges of each pin are. So this one would come right to here, so that's right. This one would come right to here, that's right. This one would come right to there, that's right. So this is obviously in the wrong spot. This one comes right to there. This one, okay, they are in the wrong spot. All right, at least I know. Excuse me. So I need to go in here and finish off this one. Needs to come in a little farther forward. I have done this before. Offset to my left, mark to the right.
Could you try waxing?
That was bad luck last time. I'm going to saw them now. All right. I haven't done a jumbled up mess like that in a long time. Let's hope this isn't a sign of the future. I'll use a red pen. The light over here. Make sure I'm marking the correct ones. Okay, now identify our waist. Now I got to go ahead and I just got to process this as I would and then do the correction after. I don't trust my square anymore. Actually, I trust my square, but I didn't get time to level my bench. Try to eliminate all the variables. I think I've developed an allergy to wood. Not good. Okay. Set that in there. As I mentioned the other day, the nice thing about this method is if you have a light enough touch, I'm focusing up here in the top because I do not want to cross that end lap. If I accidentally went below the line in here, not so bad, hardly gets seen, remember? You're typically not sticking your head down around and looking into the back side of the drawer front. But if you have enough, if you did enough work with this dovetail marking knife, the kerf is small enough. I think I've already told you that I only have 2 thou set per side. That actually touches the blade, and that will carry it down plumb. So a light touch, the kerf keeps me going where I need to go across the top, and it holds it on line, so I'm getting a nice plumb cut down the face. My light in the wrong spot. Talking to a fellow named Doug today who has a mattress factory, and they have stopped producing mattresses, and they're using their sewing machines and their materials to make masks, and I think that's pretty admirable. Not for money, just to do it as a community service, help first responders. Okay, I'm going to carry my X down here. And we'll go ahead and process that. By the way, when I always teach my students, don't remove this waste until you're satisfied with your pins. If you had to, you could cut another pin board because you still have your waste in there in order to guide your saw. Classic example is what I just did, although hopefully I'm not going to have to do another one. I'll use a 1/2 inch. Can we get a 1/2 inch in there? Yeah, we can. That'll save some work. Just check the edge. There's just a little bit of a burr on the back side, so I'll take the opportunity to put a new edge on. Find your primary, come up just a little bit higher. On narrow chisels, it's easier to do, or it's better to do just little forward and back strokes. If you try to do circles, you'll find, particularly if you're new at the freehand sharpening, you'll end up skewing your blade, which is not the end of the world, but I prefer to keep that square on the end. And then lay that down, then drop it on. You want to keep that back flat. And I don't know if you'd heard it, but you could feel the burr that had been on there. And it wasn't the burr that I just created on the stone. It was a burr that had resulted from the edge being folded. All right, get our light just right. So that is just a, oh wait a minute now, I forgot my depth mark. Set that so that you're right on your baseline out here. And then put your mark so you know how deep to go. If you missed our live broadcast Saturday night, what did we raise for the Purple Heart? 3,400. And we gave away, you want to show them that plane? We gave away a number 6. It'll be all souped up to our standard, ready to go. And there were how many people in the draw? How many names? 450 people in the draw, and we gave away four prizes, so pretty good odds. All right. In here, about a 30-second or so. Remember, don't go all the way down. I'm down there about 2/3 the distance. Fibers break out ahead, so you can't afford to have that going below your baseline. And then, nice thing about having a chisel that essentially is the full width, it's going to be a lot faster. Still, I take relatively small bites so that I'm not having to fight with the chisel being stuck in there. Now at this point I start going deeper so that when I finally make it to the baseline, I'm down to depth. Actually, I'm down to depth now, so I can just continue. And if you're not sure of yourself, don't do this on your bench without a backup block underneath. And be careful not to do it over top of a dog hole. If you do, there's a chance you're going to blow right through. Now that was pretty quick. Let's do that again. Step in here about a 30-second. Go down 2/3 the depth. Spitting on my work accidentally. Can we move that lamp? Now we start to go a little deeper. All it takes is just one extra hit with the mallet at the end. All right, now this one sets right in the gauge. I'm over tight to one line. And that leaves just a little bit. Remember, pry away from your any line that's going to be glued. Mind you, you're not going to see that one, but still get into the habit, or don't get into the habit of actually, I should have said get into the habit of always prying away from your finished edges. Okay, sit right in the gauge line. Okay, now that vertical in the vise. Okay, just get rid of that broken fibers. Small chunks. I'm going to tighten up my chisel handle. If you haven't seen these chisels, these are made by IBC. I was the experience behind the design. Tried to come up with a chisel that had all of the good features from chisels I had owned or worked with, and overcome some of the negative aspects. So the handles don't fall off, but they come off. Makes it really easy. I should show you. If you when you first get your chisel and you got to prepare the chisel back, what you can do is just unscrew the handle. The ferrule comes off, and now that will lay perfectly flat on your stone, so there's nothing in the way when you're doing it. Now, why is that important? Well, if you have a chisel that has a cone on here that accepts your handle, when you're working on your stone, if this is your stone and you're working the back, as you come over here, without even realizing it, you hit this elevated area, and all of a sudden now you're bearing down on the tip, and you lose that ever so important, or all so important flatness at the right at the edge. That lays perfectly flat. You can also turn your own handles. These were turned by a friend of mine named Ahmed down in California. Actually, I got that jammed in there pretty good. But there's a connecting rod in there with an aluminum cap on the end so that you're never actually hitting the wood, which allows you to go in and use woods that you just wouldn't typically think would stand up to use on a chisel. I've got, what do we have? Macassar ebony, black and white ebony. We've got cocobolo, we've got Vera wood. Got some gorgeous ones. So if you're looking for good chisels, check our site. I'll put the link in there. They're not cheap. Now, someone had made a comment about being a little more economical, or efficient, I should say, with your time. So if I was doing this myself, I would go through and I would do all of each procedure the number of times that I actually have, in this case, tails and pins. And you're not picking up different tools 3 times as often. Excuse me just one second. I'll shut that off for just a second.